Our home planet, Earth, is a unique place in the universe. It is the only location in the known cosmos where the presence of life has been proven. Geographic names divide the Earth in countless ways. Since the beginning of time, people have given names to the places they live in. These names are frequently picked up by the local populations or by a colonial army that opted to divide a territory in accordance with its preferences. A continent's name, on the other hand, is a very different affair. They are too huge to house a single, coherent population. So, where did these names come from? You might not be aware of how complex the etymology of continents is, but don't worry. This video will explain everything you need to know about the continents and their names. We, English speakers, use a variety of names for the continents, all of which are very old. But if there's one thing they all have in common, it's that the names were picked by Europeans. Numerous historical factors have contributed to this, but colonization of both the land and the languages is the main one. Europe. The term Europe is quite ancient. It was first recorded in writing in the Homeric hymns, which is a collection of 33 anonymous hymns composed in about the 6th century BC. In homage to several Greek gods, it has its roots in ancient Greece. However, there are some ambiguities about what is the origin of this word. The continent's name probably derives from the Greek god Europa, but that doesn't explain why the name Europa was chosen or why this specific goddess came to serve as the continent's symbol. One explanation holds that it derives from the Akkadian verb Arabu, which means to set in the west, since Europe was to the west of Asia. Another, more widely accepted explanation is that the name combines the Greek terms euris, which means broad, and ops, which means face, because the continent stood in for the broad face over which humanity walked. Asia. The name Asia is derived from the ancient Greek term Asia. The term Asia was first used by Herodotus in about 440 BC to refer to Anatolia, or the Persian Empire, as opposed to Greece and Egypt. Originally, it was only used to refer to the region the Hittites called Asua, which was located on the east bank of the Aegean Sea. The Greeks began referring to the entirety of the territory we now know as Anatolia as Asia in the early classical era. Asia was the name given by the Roman Empire to the entire Lydian region, which is today's northwest Turkey. But through time, the name had been gradually extended eastward until it came to cover the far greater land area with which we now associate it, while the Anatolian Peninsula began to be referred to as Asia Minor or the Lesser Asia in its place. It is impossible to know the etymology's deeper origin, but there's a chance of two possibilities. The first possibility is it might have sprung from the Aegean Rhodosis, which refers to the eastern Aegean sea coasts as muddy and silty. The second possibility is it may come from the borrowed Semitic word asu, which can mean rising or light, and is a directional reference to the sunrise. Asia would therefore mean eastern land. However, it is true that the Greeks' division of the world into Europe and Asia gave rise to the concept of continents in the first place. Once more, it is questionable whether this explanation is accurate. While they applied the titles indiscriminately, they had no idea on how big Europe or Asia actually were at the time. Africa. Like the etymology of every other continent so far, Africa has ambiguous roots. The most plausible idea is that it comes from the Arabic word far away, which means earth. Romans used the name, which originally emerged in Latin in the 2nd century CE, to refer to a particular area in northern Africa, where modern-day Libya is located. Even more mysterious than its beginnings is how this term for a particular area came to be used to describe the entire continent. Over the past 2,000 years, Names for the land mass, which are now countries in Africa, such as Libya, Ethiopia, Guinea, or Sudan, have been far more frequently used. However, it wasn't until the 17th century CE, when European colonists and explorers began to traverse the globe and gain a greater understanding of what this planet actually looks like, that the term Africa began to take hold. As affluent Europeans began staking claims to and dividing up geographical masses, notably in Africa, place names became a free-for-all during this time. Africa was undoubtedly named during this period, when a popular new map may establish a name for generations to come, though we'll never know for sure why. North and South America. The Americas have been inhabited by humans for tens of thousands of years, and many indigenous tribes had given their respective land masses their unique names before the arrival of the Europeans. One of the most well-known to have endured to the present day is Turtle Island, a moniker for North America that comes from a Lenape creation myth. It is fairly arbitrary to use the name America to refer to both continents, or simply one. After Christopher Columbus went to the West and brought his discoveries back to Europe, other people made it their mission to learn more about the continent they had previously been oblivious of. Amerigo Vespucci, an Italian merchant, was one of these individuals. He arrived in the New World in 1501 and discovered that Columbus hadn't reached India, but had really arrived on a separate continent. In order to give Vespucci credit for this discovery, German cartographer Martin Waldseemüller named the continents North and South America, which is a Latinization of Amerigo. Australia. Romans believed that there was another continent to the south as early as the 2nd century CE. They referred to this as unknown southern territory, or Terra Australis Incognita. Willem Jansoan, a Dutch adventurer, was the first person from Europe to really go south and discover a place that might possibly meet this description in 1606. A few decades later, in 1644, New Holland was chosen as the continent's first name. He discovered a landmass that was already populated by a large number of people, just like the Americas. The explorers disregarded the indigenous people, just like they did in the Americas. In actuality, the Dutch paid little attention to New Holland and made no serious attempts to stake any legitimate claims to the territory, with the exception of a few exploring areas. James Cook, a British explorer, arrived on the continent in the 1770s and made the decision to declare England the sole owner of the entire East Coast. Another British explorer, Matthew Flinders, recommended changing the country's name to Australia in the early 19th century because he, like many others, thought no other continent would ever be discovered further to the south. Following the colonization of the continent by the British, Australia eventually came to represent the entire region. Many believed that Australia was the world's southernmost continent at the time. They were in the dark. Antarctica. For ages, people have been looking for a southern continent. Ironically, continental Antarctica was originally discovered by a Russian expedition in 1820, just a few years after Australia became a nation. What to title the new southern continent was left up to cartographers, who were in a bind. The southern continent has been referred to by a number of various names on maps throughout the 19th century, including Ultima and Antipodia. The present name Antarctica was given to the continent by Scottish cartographer John George Bartholomew in the 1880s. The word Antarctic, which previously described the entire area surrounding the South Pole, served as the inspiration for the name. This word is a mixture of the words anti and Arctic, with Arctic having its roots in the Greek word arctos, which means bear. There you have it, folks. We hope you enjoyed this video. Please make sure you like the video, subscribe to this channel, and don't forget to hit the notification bell.